Thanks, Jack. Now this week we're going through enrollments. Next week we're going through and talking about sessions of care. Week after we've got how CCS is actually paid. And the last session we've got, guys, coming up in week 5 is recording and notification. So without further ado, I might just kick off quickly now. So in terms of what we're going to cover tonight, we're going to cover the enrollment process. Now, as I said, there is 4 stages to this, and this is probably where we'll spend most of this evening. So we'll go through the 4 stages of the enrollment process. We'll go through the various responsibilities and where you guys as providers or educators are involved, where parents are involved, and when Centrelink/Services Australia is involved. We'll also go through updating and ending arrangements and enrollments. So we'll touch on like when you have to cease an enrollment or when enrollments actually cease on their own. And the last point we'll touch on is enrollment statuses. So so there's 7 stages of enrollments, 7 statuses for enrollments, and we'll take you through the various stages of that as well. So now by the end of this session, you should be able to understand what the 4 enrollment stages are. When do you need to separate enrollments? Who's responsible for updating enrollment information? How long can a CCS claim stay active for without any sessions of care being reported for the child? What period will any back payment cover? How is a provider notified of a confirmed enrollment? What happens if there's a dispute on the enrollment information? And can there be more than one claimant for each child? So I'm hoping by the end of this session, these are the specific questions we'll be able to answer through the content we go through tonight. So the enrollment process, or let's talk about enrolling just generally. Now, providers like yourselves or educators working for providers, I guess one of the key things is that you're governed by what we know as family assistance law, right? So enrolling children is a requirement under family assistance law for all children who attend childcare. Okay, now that's regardless of if their parents or their guardians are eligible for CCS or not. Now, I'm already touching on one of the key points here is that if we rewind a couple of years back to COVID, when the department stopped asking you guys to submit sessions for that 6-month period, what they were paying you based on was the number of enrollments you had for children at your service. Now, again, we'll go into things like CWAs and PAs and RAs tonight. But the key thing here is if a child attends your service, you need to have an enrollment for that child. Now, again, I'm talking about COVID, and that's how they paid you based on how many children you had enrolled in your service. But it can happen in other circumstances where you've got natural disasters and things like that, and the government's just said, yep, based on the number of enrollments you have, we will pay you X amount of subsidy. Okay, so it's just key. One of the key things to do is to have, if a child attends your service, regardless if they're getting CCS or not, it's key to have an enrollment for that child. Now, there are 4 stages as I said, in the enrollment process involving the following parties. So the family, the provider, Centrelink or Services Australia. Now, each one of the parties in there has a specific responsibility of what they need to undertake. Now, the responsibility of each party in the enrollment process is to ensure that the provider or confirm the information is accurate, ensure the information is provided in a timely manner, and any updates or changes of information is done in a timely manner. The last one, all 3 of those points are very, very clear. Very, very important. The last one in particular is around changes of circumstances whether or not a child's changed the number of days that they attend, if a family's updated their income, things like that. Anything that needs to change needs to be done in a very timely manner so that CCS can be accurate when it's paid out. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's kick straight into step 1 of the enrollment process. As I said, there are 4 steps in this. So now the 4 steps in an ideal scenario or world, everyone would follow this process and the whole thing will work quite smoothly. But in reality, we know that that's not the case. Families will tend to, seek care first before they go through the CCS application process and things like that. And you guys as providers have to kind of try to accommodate as best you can. But if we look at step one in itself is the individual meaning the family or the primary carer in this case, makes a claim for CCS with Centrelink. Okay, so step one, the key part or the key person here is the actual family itself. And the other party, Services Australia / Centrelink. Okay, so you as a provider, I'll go into in terms of what you're involved with here, but it's actually not much at this stage. So the primary carer should create or access their Centrelink online account or MyGov to lodge a CCS claim for each of their children. So that's if they have the ability to do it online via their MyGov or via Centrelink online. Obviously, the alternative to that is if they don't have access to apply for the CCS online, then yes, the family will just have to pop into to Centrelink to submit an application. But the easiest way, obviously, is to do it online. Now, in many cases, the individual is the child's parent, but it can be someone else. Okay, so it can be the carer's partner, an adoptive or foster parent, a grandparent, or a relative that's legally responsible for day-to-day care and welfare of the development of the child. So the key one there, guys, is the primary carer. Remember, CCS, as we talked about last week, is based on the primary carer's activity, which drives the number of hours that you can receive subsidized care, right? So typically what we have seen in real practical terms is sometimes a family submits, or sorry, as a service, you submit an enrollment notice for a family to approve in their MyGov, but they're not specifically eligible. That's because sometimes the registered primary carer with Centrelink may not be the one that they're submitting to you as for you to submit an enrollment notice, right? So sometimes we just have to switch those around. But the key thing here is the primary carer is the only one that's eligible for CCS or eligible to apply for CCS on behalf of the child. That can change as circumstances change. So this is where I talk about if employment changes or income changes and things like that, it's important to notify Centrelink straight away. Then they can actually change. You know, if dad becomes the primary carer and vice versa, then they can make the change on their side. They then have to inform you as the provider to say, hey, we've made changes to our primary caring arrangements. CCS is now going to be paid under dad or vice versa. Okay, so that's one of the key things to understand as part of this process. The other party in this stage, guys, is Centrelink. Now, Centrelink, once they've received the application, Centrelink will check and confirm the eligibility of the child and the eligibility of the individual and the child for CCS. Now, we covered eligibility in module 1 or session 1 last week, and that's all around, I guess, if we talked about specifically entitlements and eligibility, we're talking about, you know, they've satisfied income tests, they've satisfied activity tests, they've provided updated immunization certificates, or they've got an exemption for that. They're the key things that need to be submitted in order for Centrelink to confirm if an individual is eligible or a child's eligible for CCS. Okay, so step 1, I'll just quickly recap, involves the parent and Centrelink, an application and an approval, effectively. Now, you guys as the provider, you're not directly involved at this stage in terms of claiming CCS. The only things that you probably need to know is an enrollment can be created before an individual has actually lodged a CCS claim. Okay, so that means if I decided to I guess, attend your service and you accepted my child for care, we can actually start. You know, I can then go and apply with Centrelink and for the go through the application process with Centrelink. Now, the issue for me as the parent in this case would be that CCS is not approved yet. Effectively, I could be paying full fee up until my CCS has actually been approved by Centrelink. Now, that's my specific issue, but it also depends on how you choose to run your service. Some of our services or some services say, well, whilst your CCS is being through the application process, I may only charge you 50% of your fees, but you're making kind of an estimate on what CCS might pay me or might pay a family. Sometimes that comes in higher, sometimes that comes in lower. So then you kind of have to chase yourself a little bit to get the accounts back in balance. But the understanding is typically as a parent who hasn't gone through the full application process with CCS is that you pay full fee. But what you need to be aware of, though, as a provider is this. Now, providers should be aware that CCS claims can only be backdated for a maximum of 28 days before the claim was made. Okay, so if I attended, say, 2 months ago, and I only submitted a claim 30 days ago, they're not going to pay for anything that I attended in month 2, or the very first month that I attended your service. Okay, so the key one there is a claim can only be backdated to a maximum of 28 days. Now, when it gets backdated, this is one of the other key points here, is any back payment of CCS that is payable for the 28-day period before a claim was made would generally be paid back to the individual, okay, and not to the provider. What that means is this. Say I attend your service last week and I've attended 3 days and my full fees is $300 and I've paid you $300. Suddenly Centrelink confirms that, yes, Fong, you are now eligible for CCS. We know that the service has submitted sessions on your behalf of last week. We know we owe you $150. Cool. What happens is Centrelink would typically back pay directly to me, because the assumption that Centrelink make, and I say Centrelink, but let's call it CCS, the assumption that the department is making is that I've already paid full fee up until this point. There's no point in specifically giving it back to the provider. They just back pay me because they've assumed that I've paid full fee up until this point. Okay, so that's why sometimes as you go through your CCS payments report, you'll see things like payments made to individual, which means they've actually back paid it directly to the parent in that case. Okay, so that's a key one to note. As I said to you, if you do decide not to charge full fee, because yeah, I guess you're empathetic to parent situations and things like that. If I couldn't pay the $300 and I only paid you $150, depending on what CCS actually pay me, I might have to pay you more, pay you less, but the responsibility of chasing up the difference actually lies with you as the provider. Okay, so that's kind of where the CCS position is. Now, so if I'm just to quickly sum up step 1, you as a provider aren't part of this process yet. The family needs to go through and set up their Centrelink account and make an application through Centrelink, and Centrelink plays their part by reviewing the application and seeing if the parent / child is eligible for CCS. The other key points to note here, guys: backdating 28 days at most, and generally it's recommended that up until CCS is approved by the department, they do recommend for the parent to pay full fee up until that point, on the understanding that if CCS is approved subsequently, that the back payments actually get paid back directly to the parent. Hopefully that makes sense. I know I've gone through a little bit of content there. Please let me know if I'm actually speaking way too fast as well via the chat as well. If I've missed anything, or if you want me to clarify anything, please let me know. But that's step 1, guys. Step 2, this is where you do get a little bit involved. Now, step 2 effectively is only 2 people involved again, or sorry, 2 groups of people. That would be yourself, the parent or the family, and yourself. So step 2 is the provider and the individual / family agree an arrangement of care for the child. Okay, so with Centrelink, the childcare service agreement and fees are agreed between the provider and the family. Now, the Australian government doesn't play a role in the fee setting yet. I know most of you have gone through the latest round of the ACCC asking for pricing and things like that. So they don't play a role yet, but that's their position at the moment. Now, the key people, as I said, in this part of in this step is the family and the provider. So once an individual makes a claim for CCS with Centrelink, the provider must first enter into an agreement with the individual on a planned arrangement of care for the child. What that means, guys, and we all know it to be this, it's under a CWA, or a complying written agreement. So it's the agreement with which families can receive CCS. Okay, it's the CWA. I think most of us kind of understand that arrangement. So if you are eligible for CCS, it's most likely that you come under a CWA arrangement. Essentially what it is, guys, in very simple terms, it's an agreement to provide care in return for fees. That's exactly what that's what a CWA is. Now, keynote for you. There is no requirement for individuals to sign a CWA. However, they must confirm their agreement to the terms in writing electronically. So for example, via email or via your software system, or it can be in a hard copy. Okay, so there's a general misnomer or a misunderstanding, and it's not for anything bad. It's CWAs don't technically need to be signed. So if I said to you, or I approached your service and we already had an agreement in place, and I suddenly said, hey, I'm switching from 3 days of attendance per week down to 2. Technically, I don't actually have to sign a new CWA. I can just email you those changes. You as the provider do have an obligation to then change obviously my days and then update CCS or the department with the updated information, right? So the information that's held with with the department before I made that change was, say, 3 days of attendance care at, say, $100 a day. Once I've given you notice that I'm switching back to 2 days, what you would have to do is submit an enrollment notice change to the department outlining that I am now under an arrangement of 2 days for $100 a day. That's effectively what it is. But nowhere in that process have I needed to re-sign a CWA. I just have to, you as a provider just have to receive something in electronically or something physical or in a hard copy that you have to keep for your own records. Now, once you do agree into a CWA or an arrangement for care with a family, you must submit an enrollment notice within 7 days within which the arrangement started, okay? So the key part there, it's within 7 days. Now, I've seen it outside of 7 days. In fact, I've seen it up to 14. In fact, I've actually seen it a little bit longer in real practical terms, guys. But I guess the thing I'll point out here is the longer that you leave it is is a higher risk of you not being back paid or receiving the amount of CCS that you should. Okay, so ultimately in your software system, you can submit an enrollment, you can back that enrollment quite far. The risk that you have is that CCS may not back pay you for that entire period. Okay, so the encouragement that I'll leave with you in this part of the discussion is that as soon as there is a change, or as soon as a parent is due to start with you, create the CCS enrollment notice within 7 days. If a provider enters into a CWA more than 14 weeks before the child starts, the enrollment will cease in the system. Okay, so if I haven't attended your service, so if you created a enrollment notice for me today and I don't attend within the next 14 weeks, the CCS system or the department just automatically seizes that enrollment. Okay, so it doesn't matter if I've had entitlements approved or confirmed or anything like that. You would have to go back and then what we call, I guess, reactivate a CC enrollment. So the system will automatically, if I don't attend and you don't submit any sessions within that 14-week period, my enrollment or my enrollment notice with CCS automatically gets seized. Cool. Hope that makes sense. So just to quickly sum up step 2, 2 parties are involved, the family and you as a provider. Key step number 1 is to agree the arrangement of care with the family. Once you've agreed that care arrangement with that family, you have to submit an enrollment notice. The recommended period to do that is within 7 days. I've got a question quickly is, does the family need to sign a new CWA whenever there is an enrollment change? Technically not. They don't. They just have to provide it in written form to you. Again, that could be in the form of an email, or they can write something specifically on a letter that you will then have to hold in hard copy form. So, but no, you don't have to sign a specific new CWA. I have other services that do this, but they do it for their own compliance purposes anyway. And when I say compliance, it's non-mandatory. It's more of a checklist that they have in place for themselves. Step 2, guys, that's it. Step 2, again, the key ones, CWA, arrangement of care, submit an enrollment notice within 7 days to the department. That's the key one. Oh, so I've gone into a little bit deeper around what the CWA is. So we might touch quickly on at this stage, I've only talked about CWAs, but there are in total, there are 4 arrangements. So the one that we've just talked about is the CWA. Second one is a relevant arrangement, and we'll go into what these are. The third one is ACCS, child wellbeing, and which is something that you can put under a PA or a provider eligible arrangement. The last one there is an arrangement with an organization third party, which is an OA, which is under for special arrangements. Now, so let's go into those ones a little bit deeper. So with the CWA, in terms of the CWA, I've got just another question here. If a parent decides to change their arrangement or regular booking with the provider, is there a feature on owners to support that? No, not specifically at this stage. They'll just have to inform you as the provider to make the changes in terms of their booking pattern. So, but there's no specific feature for that at the moment. A CWA must include the name and contact details of the provider and the individual, the date the arrangement starts, the name and date of birth of the child, details of the fees charged under the arrangement. This should include fees for both routine, sessions of care and casual sessions of care where applicable, and whether the care will be on a casual or flexible basis as well. So they're the key things that need to be included in the CWA. Now, all this information can be done by your software provider or via the PEP. Now, the one thing I will point out here, sorry, I'll just quickly answer one for Jing Lu here. If the family doesn't want to claim CCS, okay, we've just answered that one. If a family doesn't want to claim CCS, does the family still need to sign a CWA? No, Jing, they don't. What they need to do is what you need to do is still create an enrollment for that child. And what you would put in instead of a CWA is what we call an RA. And that's what's known as a relevant arrangement. And we'll go into what they are in a couple of slides' time. Whilst we're here, guys, there's a common topic that we get asked a lot about is what happens under a shared care arrangement. If a child's parents are separated and both individuals or their new partners are responsible for part of the cost of the childcare fees, each individual must make their own claim for CCS and must enter into their own CWA with a provider. So if my son went to your service and my wife or my ex-wife, we agreed that this is the service that we want to send our son to, I would apply for CCS on my own. My wife or my ex-wife would do the same on her side. And then what would happen is our son would have 2 different enrollment notices. Okay. So they'll have 2 different enrollment IDs for my son. One son will be linked to me, and that will be the CCS will be applicable to him. And the other side of it, the entitlements for mum will be then applicable to him as well. Now, most software providers do what we call is you create 2 duplicate children for your service, and each will have a different billing account effectively. But the key takeaway here is under a shared care arrangement, each responsible party or each primary carer to a degree will make a claim for CCS individually. Okay. Now, each parent will be assessed separately for CCS based on their individual income and activity levels, and payments will be calculated for each parent individually. Now, if parents do not inform the provider of their changed circumstances, let's say they separate during the current arrangement with you, then it's the parent's responsibility to resolve any disputes they may have between them regarding CCS and fee payments. Okay, so that's where you sit out of it. Okay, so again, this one here is reliant on the parent informing you of this care situation. So in terms of this one here, guys, we've gone through specifically the requirements of a CWA and what needs to be included. Your software provider holds all this information already. So there's not as though you have to fill out anything different. There is an enrollment process for each software provider to submit these details as you create new enrollments. The other thing I touched on here, guys, is around shared care, where you are in a situation where there's more than one primary carer for that child because of a family situation. Okay. And the key takeaway for that is that both caring parents or individuals need to apply for CCS separately. So these are the other care types, arrangement types. So the relevant arrangement, the RA. So I think, Jing, you asked this question, if a family doesn't want to claim CCS, this is what you would put the RA. This is what care arrangement you would put for the child, which is an RA, not a CWA. Okay, so now this type of enrollment is used only where a provider is sure that the family does not wish to claim CCS. As no CCS will be paid under this type of agreement, an enrollment notice must still be submitted for an RA. Okay, so you still need to create an enrollment ID for this child. As I said, that has different purposes of capturing children within your care, so the information about children within your care. Now, under this arrangement, the provider invoices the individual for the full fee as agreed in the arrangement. In regards to an RA, what do we do if a parent does not have a CRN? I'll have to come back to you on that one, Dave. I'm pretty sure you can still submit one, an RA without parent CRN, to be honest. But I'll come back to you on that one. ACCS, Child Wellbeing Provider Eligible Arrangement, a PEA. So we went through ACCS last week, and specifically around child wellbeing. So in the event you have a child that's, I guess, in danger, or you're concerned about their wellbeing, you can put them under a PEA arrangement, okay, which means you don't have to have them under a CWA. You can put them in under a PEA, and what you would then do for ACCS to be applicable is then you would go through and you would apply for ACCS under an ACCS certificate. Okay, so that means that you can care for that child, and then if your ACCS certificate comes in, then the subsidy will offset that. So if the child doesn't have a specific primary carer, but they need care, you would put them under a PEA arrangement and apply for ACCS under child wellbeing. Now, the last one there, guys, is an arrangement with an organization or a third party. Now, there will be special arrangements to accommodate for when fees are paid by a third party or where there is shared care. Now, a third party, this is an arrangement between the individual and another party. Sometimes it's an employer or an other organization or state, where the other party will cover the cost of the fees for the child, for the care of the child. If a third party pays the whole fee for all sessions on behalf of an individual, the provider must create an arrangement with an organization enrollment for that child. The provider invoices the organization for the full fee as agreed in the arrangement because no CCS will apply. So because I've seen some of these instances where sometimes it's the state that pays for the care of this child or a specific organization. Under this arrangement, all you're doing is invoicing someone else because CCS is not applicable to this. So what you would end up creating is, I guess, an account for the third party, and then you would assign the care, not the care, but I guess the fees or the fees associated with that child's care to that specific organization, and then you would just invoice those that organization. Because there's no CCS applicable to it, all you need to do under this arrangement is to put the child under, I guess, an OA because you're not claiming CCS. Cool. Now, there is one more complex thing to this. Okay, so if a third party pays for some sessions but not others, the provider can submit 2 enrollments, a CWA for the parent. So this might be where a child attends 4 days a week, 2 days is paid by the parent and 2 days are paid by the third party. So the same thing as we do with shared care, you just create two different enrollments. In this case, though, one will be under a CWA arrangement because mum is, or mum or dad is claiming CCS. So that would be for, say, for 2 days. Then you would have a duplicate child, and that duplicate child or duplicate enrollment will be under an OA, and those fees will then be invoiced directly to the third party. Okay. So to quickly sum up, there are 3 other arrangements other than a CWA. Only the relevant arrangement is for families that do not wish to claim CCS. The second one is a PEA, which is a provider eligible arrangement, and typically it's used for ACCS purposes, whereby you can take a child into care, but for you or for the service to receive any kind of CCS, you'd have to apply for an ACCS certificate. And the last one is an arrangement with a third party called an OA. So CWA, RA, PEA, or an OA is what we're looking at. Step number 3. My friends, this is where, as providers, you are the most actively involved at this step here. Probably aside from step number 2 as well. But step 3 is all about providing and submitting an enrollment notice to CCS. And when I say enrollment notice, it sounds very formal, but you know, as you go through, every child has an individual enrollment ID. That's all I'm saying. Just create an enrollment with CCS is effectively all I'm saying. Now, families at this point aren't specifically involved. Okay, so if it's your responsibility as a provider to submit an enrollment notice. Now, as the provider, once you have made an arrangement of care with an individual or a family, you can go through and create a new enrollment notice through your software, through your childcare software, or directly through the PEP. The PEP, for those that weren't here last week, I'm talking specifically about the provider the provider entry point, which you gain access to via Proda. Now, you as a provider must submit an enrollment notice for each child at each service. I'll start again, guys. The provider must submit an enrollment notice for each child at each service and in the name of the individual who is eligible for CCS. That is the person who's made the claim in order for these payments to be made. Now, typically we know them as the primary carer. As I said to you just previously a couple of slides ago, one of the key things that we see a lot of is that when parents submit an enrollment an enrollment form with you, or they agree to attend your service, sometimes they give you the wrong primary carer that's registered with CCS. Okay, and then we're going to talk about enrollment statuses in a moment, but they'll go into things like sometimes pending eligibility in terms of the enrollment status. And that means sometimes the primary carer listed with you is not the one listed with Centrelink. Okay, so sometimes we have to switch those two around. You do need the CRN of the other guardian or parent or individual in order to create a new enrollment notice. But typically we do see that happen, and typically can hold up CCS from being approved because they've just gotten mixed up about who's the registered primary carer with Centrelink. Okay. Now, as I said before, you as the provider need to submit an enrollment notice within 7 days from the end of the week in which the provider and family made an arrangement. So again, key thing there, 7 days is what I'm encouraging. Like I said to you, in real practical terms, I have seen it backdated further than that, but I'm just taking specifically words out of the CCS handbook, and they're suggesting 7 days. The provider or service being approved or the end of the suspension of a service. So ultimately, guys, take away from that point is submit an enrollment notice within 7 days is the key part there. Now, you can do this through your childcare software, your PEP, as I said, and you as a provider will be able to view, create, update, or cease enrollments for all children attending their services. Providers will also be able to see the complete enrolment history, all current and ceased enrolment notices for each child enrolled with them. Okay, so your software should be able to show you the history of every enrollment of every child that's attended your service. That's what it should show you. And again, if it doesn't show you there, which it should, you can actually see all these details via the PEP as well. Okay. So when it says the complete history, we're talking about specific things. Like if, as I said to you before, in my scenario where I've agreed to attend your service for 3 days at $100 a day, and I then change my arrangement, when you go and submit an updated enrollment notice, and I said, now I attend 2 days, you should see there should be a previous entry where it had 3 days, and you can see it. And then it will see another arrangement type where it says 2 days. Okay, so you actually get to see the entire history of my enrollment. Now, one thing that's not on the screen here that you should know. Enrollment IDs are unique to the provider. Okay, so what that means is this. My child that attends your service has a specific enrollment ID. Okay, it's unique. If I then go to another service, like down the road, the ID that's created for my child is different. It's unique to that service because the enrollment ID is a unique ID between you as a provider and me and my child. If I go somewhere else, that they will then give me another enrollment ID because it's unique to them. Even if your service, and we've had a lot of this happen too, even if your service is sold to another provider, the way that CCS or the department treated it is like, this child is now entering in a different care arrangement with a different provider, and therefore you need to get a new enrollment ID. In real practical terms, it's not great for families because they'll just say, hang on, I'm still attending the same service. But in the eyes of the department, that child is attending a new arrangement with a new provider. Okay. So the key takeaway, guys, is that an enrollment ID is unique between the child and the provider. Hope all this is making sense so far, guys. We've gone through 3 steps at this stage. Step number 1, obviously, was around parents applying for CCS. You're specifically not involved. Step 2 is parents engaging with you for care services. And we're going into CWAs and arrangements, care arrangements. Step 3 is around you submitting an enrollment notice to Centrelink to start the process. Step 4 is where it kind of all gets tied together. Look, I might pass on this because we've already gone through the situation where there's shared care arrangements. So I'm just going to pass on this one quickly. Before I go on to step 4, so enrollment notices must contain the following. So, and then this is specifically under a CWA, okay? So the enrollment circumstances whether either an arrangement for care has been made, expected pattern of care, so that's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday over a fortnightly period, the dates of the care arrangement that started, the parties to the arrangement. So in this case, you'll have, when you submit an enrollment notice, you'll have the primary carer on there, the child receiving the care along with their CRN and date of birth, the service providing the care. So that, again, by your software provider, it will submit your service IDs and things like that. The person making the claim for the child care for the CCS. So that, again, would be typically the primary carer. And I guess the session details. So session start time, then the end time. Okay. So that's specifically what's in an enrollment notice. Like I said to you, most of this is also kind of done within your software. Step 4. We're actually almost there, guys. So step 4 is about the individual or the primary carer confirming the enrollment. So everyone's involved at this stage. So now, in terms of the family, in terms of their involvement, so after you as the provider submit an enrollment notice for a child, the individual will be notified and asked to check their main enrollment notice details. Now, this will occur through Centrelink, online, or MyGov. Where an individual can't access MyGov, they can confirm their enrollment over the phone with Centrelink or by visiting the Centrelink office. Typically, if they've got access to MyGov, they can approve the enrollment notice there and then. Okay. So the individual must then indicate that either the enrollment details are correct, one or more enrollment details are incorrect, do not reflect the arrangement. So if they've wanted 2 days, but you've put down 3, they just need to check those details. Now, they're the things that kind of come through. So if they don't agree with it, what families tend to do, or what the primary carer can do, is what they call dispute an enrollment. Now, disputing enrollment does create a delay in families receiving that CCS. Typically, what we advise, what we tell providers to do is to ask parents not to dispute the arrangement, but rather come back to you and say, hey, these details are wrong, can you resubmit them again? Okay, so that's typically what we would recommend. Now, once the enrollment is confirmed, the entitlements to CCS and ACCS will be calculated and payments can then begin. Okay, so the key step there is submit an enrollment notice, mum/dad/guardian goes into MyGov, hits confirmed. If they are eligible and they've got entitlements, that will go straight through, and then CCS will start to calculate from that point there. Okay, so that's in a perfect world. Now, you as a providers can enter information detailing the care provided before the individual reviews the enrollment and responds. Providers will be notified through their childcare software or the PEP when an enrollment has been confirmed or has been disputed. So in your software, I can speak specifically in Owner that we've got a little menu option that's called Enrolments. It's called Communication. It's called Communications and Correspondence. That's where you get notified and say, hey, family A has approved confirmed their enrollment, CCS will begin. It will also tell you whether or not it's been disputed or not. Now, in the event, after receiving a disagreement or a dispute, you as the provider can agree that there was an error and you just need to update the enrollment details with the correct information. That's kind of it. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we get things wrong and we just need to update the enrollment notice. Now, while the dispute is being resolved, the provider can continue. So you as a provider can continue to care for the child and must submit session reports. So you got to still submit session reports even whilst it's in dispute, although payments will not be processed for these sessions, right? So you don't get any CCS if a parent disputes an enrollment. Now, dispute can come up at any time. So I've agreed to come to your service and I've confirmed my enrollment. I've been getting CCS, but suddenly I look at the enrollment details on MyGov and go, hang on, they're wrong. I can then dispute that straight away. The issue that you've got when that happens is CCS immediately stops paying. So as you're having conversations with your families, if they notice anything that's missing or incorrect with their enrollment, what we typically encourage them to do is actually tell you as a provider so that you can make those updated changes rather than disputing the actual enrollment. Because what happens with disputing, guys, it's like a seized enrollment, okay? You will then have to update the information to the correct information, and then parents will have to then go back in and confirm it in MyGov. So it's better to encourage your parents, if the information is wrong, just to let you know, you will update it. CCS will continue to pay. Okay. Now, in the event there is a disagreement or when it's disputed and when it's resolved, entitlements and CCS and ACCS will be back calculated. Okay, so you don't really lose anything other than it might be a couple of weeks before, again, in a perfect scenario, it kind of gets resolved straight away, but there might be a couple of weeks where, CCS may not be paid and parents have to pay full fee. That's why we encourage, rather than disputing, just to let you know. Cool, guys, that's step 4. So not a lot to that. To quickly sum up, step 1, parents claim for CCS via Centrelink. Step 2, organize care arrangements with you as the service provider. Step 3, you submit an enrollment notice to CCS. Step 4, once you create the enrollment notice, parents receive that in their MyGov or their Centrelink and they confirm the enrollment. That's kind of it. That's kind of what happens in terms of the enrollment process. Cool. This is about updating enrollment. So this is where things kind of get disputed, guys. So again, where there are changes to the arrangements for care between the provider and the individual, the provider, in this case you guys, must update the arrangement in writing, electronic or hard copy, suggested in electronic. The new enrollment notice must be updated in the CCS system within 7 days of the change or event which caused the change to the arrangement. Again, it says 7 days. I've seen it backdated further than that. But if we go by what's in the CCS handbook, 7 days is what you should be aiming for if there's change in care arrangements. Ceasing an enrollment. Now, circumstances where enrollments are ceased. So if the enrollment has an end date, provided notified 4 weeks prior to the update. So if a parent came to you and they said, if I came to you and I said, we're going to discontinue our care at the end of this year, I just have to give you some notice to do that. Obviously, on your side, you would then just submit a cessation of care, and you just put a date on it. All that really means is that CCS will stop paying from that date onwards. That's all. That's all it does. So now, the other scenario is this: if a child does not attend a session for 14 continuous weeks, CCS will automatically, the child's enrollment will automatically cease. Okay, now the provider, you will be notified after 4 weeks. So in the case where the child hasn't attended for 14 weeks, you as the provider will be notified. The provider will be notified after 4 weeks of no sessions of care being reported. So again, if you're within owner, just go to messages and correspondences to check that out. Now, if the child starts attending the service again after 14 weeks or more, the provider will need to re-establish the CWA with the individual and submit a new enrollment notice. What that means is you just need to reactivate the ceased enrollment for them to start receiving their CCS again. It does go back through the process of the primary care and needing to go back into MyGov and approving that enrollment or confirming that enrollment. So guys, this is the this is the 4 steps put on a page. So again, parents apply for CCS. Parents agree to a care arrangement with you. You then create the enrollment notice with Centrelink or Services Australia. Last step is families need to confirm their enrollment. Now, enrollment statuses. This is a very, very common question that we get. Again, you don't have to write these down, guys. This will be sent or included in the what gets sent out post this. There are 7 enrollment statuses. The key one, the one that everyone loves, is this one here. It's confirmed. Confirmed generally means that everything's worked out exactly as you expected it, in the sense that parents have gone through, they've provided all the details that they need to be eligible for CCS. You've created the enrollment notice. Parents have gone through and clicked confirm in MyGov, and they're done. CCS starts automatically kind of being applied to that family. Where we get a lot of questions is around this one here, pending eligibility. Pending eligibility, my friends, as providers, there is nothing you can do when it's in pending eligibility. What pending eligibility means is this: you need to go back to step 1 in session 1 of what we covered. It means that the carer has not completed the application in full. Okay, so there is nothing you specifically can do about it. It needs to be taken up between the parent or the primary carer and Centrelink at this point. Most of the time, Families do receive correspondence via MyGov to say, hey, you haven't provided X, Y, and Z. But here are the three main reasons of why it's pending eligibility. And this is what we covered last week. Number one, they haven't done an income test. Number two, they haven't done an activity test. Number three, they haven't provided updated immunization certificates or provided an exemption for it. Typically, 95% of the time, it's one of those three reasons of why it goes into pending eligibility. The other main reason is that they've given you the wrong primary carer. And it's instead of mum, it should be dad. And that's the primary carer that's listed within it. Typically, it's any one of those four things. Now, the issue that you've got is that you cannot do anything as a provider, do anything about that. It's a situation that has to be taken up by the parent and Centrelink. Pending confirmation is a good one. What that means, guys, is that you've created an enrollment notice. It just is mum/dad/guardian just need to go into MyGov and approve the enrollment. That's it. That one's a good one. That one is a pathway into being confirmed. The other ones you might see is disputed. So as I said to you before, a parent could be in confirmed status, but for whatever reason, they've gone through and disputed it because they believe the information is wrong, and then maybe they're believing that they're receiving the wrong amount of CCS, so they dispute the enrollment. Okay, so that's another status. Rejected is the family saying, no, my child is not enrolled at this service. I don't accept these care arrangements, and they've just rejected it. Very similar to disputed. Okay, so reactivating is about the same way. Seized. A seized enrollment is just effectively the child no longer attends your service. Or, as I said to you before, a seized enrollment can occur if a child doesn't attend your service or any sessions for a continuous 14-week period. Okay, so there are 7 enrollment statuses. The one that you're looking for is confirmed. Pending eligibility, you can't do anything about it, guys. It's between Centrelink and the parent. Pending confirmation just means the parent needs to click OK on MyGov or confirm it. The other ones that you don't really want to see if they're eligible for CCS is disputed, rejected. Seized is okay. Seized is fine. You can reactivate that seized enrollment. Guys, we're at the end of it. So let's just quickly recap. So an enrollment is specific to the provider, Service, Family and Services Australia. Okay, so as I said, it's unique to each service, to each provider. There are 4 stages in the enrollment process. There are 4 types of agreements there are 4 types of agreements needed for an enrollment. A CWA is the only one that allows for CCS. Yes, a PEA is eligible, but that's more specifically for ACCS and under child wellbeing. Enrollment cease when a child does not attend a session for 14 weeks or the end date is reached. There are 7 enrollment statuses. Only confirmed means CCS can be paid. Got a question there. It says, but owner can copy enrollment details to the new service, right? I need some more detail about that one. I just need some more detail. It depends if the provider is the same or not, to be honest with you. But if you're coming from different software, so if you've transitioned from one software provider to another, take the software out of it, guys. The enrollment ID for a child is unique to the child and to the provider. It's agnostic of the software, right? So if you were coming from Quick Kids and you went to Owner, the enrollment ID is still exactly the same for that child. Nothing changes. The only time it changes is that if the child if the enrollment is with a different provider. That's the only time it changes. So we've gotten to the end of it, guys. Next week, thank you again for staying on with me this evening. The content was a little bit heavy and a little bit more detailed. Next week, we're going to dive into sessions of care, how to submit sessions of care and what they mean. The week after, we're looking at how CCS is paid. We're talking about entitlements, payments, and reconciliations. And the last session there, guys, is record keeping and notifications. So, guys, we've finished again, bang on 7 o'clock. I swear it's not specifically time, but I'll take the opportunity again to thank you for spending the last hour with me. The recording of this session will be available in just after 8 o'clock tonight. And if you slides, I think we also include them. Other than that, I'll see you again next week as we go through sessions of care. If the team, and my team will let me know if I haven't answered anything specific, we'll come back to you post-session and answer them by email there, guys. Again, take the opportunity to thank you for today. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you again. Have a good day. See you guys.